The air on Walking Street pulsed with the electric hum of a summer night. A chaotic symphony of laughter, clinking glasses, and the distant crash of waves against the jagged cliffs of Port Vera. Neon signs flickered above the crowded thoroughfare, casting a kaleidoscope of pinks, blues, and yellows across the faces of tourists and locals weaving through the open-air bars and street vendors hawking sizzling skewers. Amid the revelry, a woman strode purposefully through the throng, her crimson heels clicking against the cobblestones like a metronome of defiance. Her name was Amara Cade, a 38-year-old investigative journalist whose ink-black curls framed a face etched with both resolve and weariness. Amara wasn't just any writer, she was a legend in Port Vera. A two-time recipient of the National Truth Award for her exposés that toppled a crooked mayor and shut down a human trafficking ring operating out of the city's docks. Her bylines had sent shivers through the spines of the powerful, her words a blade that carved truth from the shadows. Tonight, though, she wasn't chasing a story, she was the story. As she crossed beneath the arched lanterns of the street's central plaza, two figures emerged from the neon haze, officers Lucas Brandt and Milo Voss. Both in their late 20s, their crisp navy uniforms a stark contrast to the kaleidoscope of chaos around them. Their eyes locked onto her with a predatory glint, hands twitching near their holsters as if itching for a fight. "Hey, you," Brandt barked, his voice cutting through the din like a gunshot. Amara stopped, her leather satchel swinging against her hip, and turned slowly, her amber eyes narrowing. "Me?" she asked, cool as the ocean breeze. Voss smirked, stepping closer, his buzzed blonde hair catching the light. "Yeah, you. Got a report of someone suspicious lurking around here. You fit the bill." The accusation hung in the air, absurd and razor-sharp. As a hush rippled through the nearby crowd, vendors paused mid-haggle. Drinkers lowered their glasses, all sensing the storm brewing. Amara's jaw tightened. She knew this script too well. A black woman in a tailored blazer and heels, daring to exist in a space where they assumed she didn't belong. Branded, suspicious, without a shred of evidence. This wasn't new to her, she'd grown up dodging these traps in the cracked streets of Port Vera's south side, where every glance from a cop felt like a loaded gun. But tonight, it wasn't just personal, it was a spark about to ignite a wildfire. "I'm walking home," she said, her voice steady but laced with steel. "That a crime now?" Brandt snorted, circling her like a shark smelling blood. "Could be. What's in the bag? Stolen goods? Something you shouldn't have?" The crowd murmured, some craning their necks, others backing away as the tension thickened. Amara's fingers flexed around her satchel strap. Inside was her latest draft. A scathing piece on police corruption she'd been piecing together for months. Backed by leaked memos and whistleblower testimonies. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. "Just my work," she replied, locking eyes with him. "I'm a journalist." Voss laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed off the stone walls. "Oh, sure, and I'm the governor. Let's see some ID." "Sweetheart." The condescension dripped from his words, and Amara felt the old fury flare in her chest, the same fury that had fueled her when she'd exposed the mayor's secret slush fund at 29. Or when she'd infiltrated the trafficking ring at 34, posing as a buyer to get the footage that landed 12 men behind bars. She reached into her satchel, slow and deliberate, pulling out her press badge alongside her ID. "Amara Cade," she said, holding it up so the gold lettering glinted in the neon glow. "Maybe you've heard of me." Brandt snatched it from her hand, barely glancing at it before tossing it to the ground. "Doesn't mean jack to me." He sneered, hands on the wall. "You're under arrest." The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath as Voss grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her back with a brutality that sent her satchel crashing to the cobblestones. Papers spilled out, her draft, her notes, her truth, scattering in the salty wind. "For what?" she demanded, her voice rising above the murmurs, sharp enough to slice through the night. "Resisting," Voss growled, snapping cold cuffs around her wrists as Brandt smirked, kicking her badge into the gutter. The Walking Street onlookers froze, some pulling out phones, others whispering her name in recognition. Amara Cade, the woman who'd brought down giants, now pinned like prey. But Amara didn't flinch, as they shoved her toward their cruiser parked at the street's edge, its lights flashing ominously against the cliffs. She caught the eye of a teenage girl in the crowd, her wide eyes mirroring the fear Amara had once felt at that age. That glance lit a fuse in her soul. These officers didn't know it yet, but they just cuffed the wrong woman. Amara Cade wasn't just a journalist, she was a reckoning. She'd spent her life dismantling systems that thrived on silence and shadows. And this arrest, this blatant display of racial injustice under the garish lights of Walking Street, wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. As the cruiser door slammed shut, the neon glow fading behind her, Amara's lips curled into a faint, dangerous smile. They thought they'd won. They thought they could bury her. But she'd been digging graves for men like them since she first picked up a pen. And tonight, Port Veyra's corrupt underbelly was about to learn just how deep she could cut. The courtroom in Port Veyra's aging municipal building was a suffocating box of polished wood and stale air, its high ceilings doing little to ease the oppressive weight pressing down on Amara Cade as she sat at the defendant's table. 3 weeks had passed since her arrest on Walking Street. 3 weeks of sleepless nights spent replaying the smug grins of officers Lucas Brandt and Milo Voss as they'd cuffed her under the neon glow. Their fabricated charge of resisting, a flimsy lie that somehow stuck. Now, at 38, Amara, a journalist who'd spent her career exposing corruption, was the one on trial. Her wrists still raw from the memory of those cuffs. The gallery buzzed with whispers. A mix of reporters she'd once mentored and locals who'd cheered her exposés. All watching as Judge Elias Hawthorne, a wiry 62-year-old with a hawkish nose and a reputation for burying inconvenient cases, leaned forward in his black robe. His gavel rested in his bony hand like a scepter, a tool he'd wielded for decades to dismiss charges against white officers while letting black and brown defendants rot. Brandt and Voss stood at the prosecution's side, their uniforms starched and smugness intact, hands resting on their duty belts as if daring anyone to challenge them. Across from Amara, her attorney, a jittery 25-year-old named Kyle Reese, fresh from law school and clearly out of his depth, fumbled with his notes, his voice cracking as he argued her innocence. She'd told him to let her speak, but he'd insisted on protocol, leaving her to sit in silence, her fury simmering beneath a calm exterior. Inside, Amara was a storm, her mind warring between the instinct to scream and the calculated patience that had won her battles before. She'd taken down a mayor at 29 with leaked audio of his bribes, exposed a trafficking ring at 34 with hidden camera footage. But this was personal. Every fiber of her wanted to leap up and shred the facade of this courtroom. Yet she knew timing was everything. She'd seen Hawthorne's game before, 5 years ago. She'd written a piece on his dismissal of a brutality case against Brandt. A rookie then, who'd beaten a black teenager unconscious outside a bodega, claiming self-defense. Witnesses vanished, evidence misplaced, and Hawthorne's ruling was a single paragraph of legalese. Voss, meanwhile, had a rap sheet of his own, complaints of racial profiling dismissed by the department, including an incident last year where he'd choked a Latino vendor on Walking Street for loitering, only for Hawthorne to toss the case with a smirk. Today, they thought they'd won again. Brandt had lied under oath an hour ago, claiming Amara swung at him, while Voss, the ink hadn't even dried on the dismissal papers when the air around Port Veyra thickened with menace. A storm of retribution brewing in the shadows of the city's neon-lit streets and salt-crusted docks. Amara Cade, now 38 and fresh off her courtroom triumph, had turned the tables on officers Lucas Brandt and Milo Voss, forcing Judge Elias Hawthorne to drop the sham charges against her with her damning Walking Street footage. That grainy video, Brandt twisting her arm until she gasped, Voss spitting, troublemaker, as he kicked her badge into the gutter, had aired on every news channel, igniting public fury and leaving the corrupt trio scrambling. But Amara knew better than to celebrate. She'd poked a hornet's nest. And the system behind them wasn't about to let a black journalist dismantle decades of unchecked power. It started subtly, an unmarked car tailing her through the twisting alleys off Walking Street, its headlights glinting like predator eyes in her rearview mirror. But subtlety burned away fast. 2 nights later, as she parked her beat-up sedan outside her Southside apartment, the world erupted. A deafening boom split the night, her car exploding into a fireball that hurled twisted metal and shattered glass across the street. the flames licking the sky as neighbors screamed. Amara dove behind a dumpster, her ears ringing, her heart slamming against her ribs as she realized this wasn't a warning, it was an execution attempt. The next day, she found Brandt and Voss at the scene, smirking amid the charred wreckage. Brandt twirling a lighter between his fingers while Voss muttered loud enough for her to hear, "Guess she's hard to kill." Their cruelty wasn't new. Brandt had once laughed as he shattered a black teen's jaw with a baton, leaving him bleeding on a bodega floor, while Voss had pinned a sobbing vendor against a wall last summer, his knee grinding into the man's spine until he blacked out. Both crimes erased by Hawthorne's gavel. Now, they were unleashed, their badges a license to terrorize her into silence. But the system's claws dug deeper. Hawthorne, that vulture in a robe, called an emergency hearing the following week, his watery eyes glinting with malice as he demanded Amara turn over her sources, her whistleblowers, her tapes, claiming they were fabricated. When she refused, he sneered, "You'll regret this." And within hours, her key witness, Milo Voss himself, turned up dead. Voss had cracked under pressure, whispering to Amara's ally, Detective Jonah Pierce, about a list of payoffs tying cops to the judge. He'd been ready to flip. But on the courthouse steps, a sniper's bullet punched through his skull, his body crumpling in a spray of blood as reporters screamed and cameras rolled. Brandt stood nearby, wiping his hands as if cleaning off guilt, his cold grin a silent boast. "We own this city." Amara's stomach churned. This wasn't just revenge, it was a purge. Then came the cruelest blow. Late one night, a frantic knock rattled her apartment door. It was Lena Hawthorne, the judge's 24-year-old daughter, her hoodie soaked with rain, her voice trembling as she thrust a flash drive into Amara's hands. "It's proof, bribes, names, everything," she whispered, her eyes darting to the shadows. Lena had seen her father shred files, had heard him brag about fixing cases for cash, and she'd stolen the evidence to stop him. Before Amara could respond, a gunshot cracked through the storm, a sniper perched on a rooftop across the street, his silenced rifle spitting death. Lena gasped, blood blooming across her chest as she collapsed, the flash drive slipping from her lifeless fingers into a puddle. Amara dove for cover, her breath hitching as bullets shredded her window, glass raining like jagged tears. She clutched the drive, Lena's sacrifice searing into her soul, and knew they'd kill anyone to bury this. The system wasn't just Hawthorne's courtroom, it was a machine of money and murder. A cabal of cops, judges, and unseen power brokers who'd built Port Vera on broken lives. Their past was a graveyard of silenced voices. A black fisherman disappeared after suing the department in 12. A Latina activist car bombed in 17. All traced back to orders Hawthorne signed and Brandt and Voss executed with glee. Now, they hunted Amara with feral desperation. Hours after Lena's murder, a black SUV rammed her borrowed truck off a cliffside road, tires screeching as she swerved, the vehicle plunging into the ocean while she leapt free, scraping her hands bloody on the rocks. Brandt's voice crackled over a police scanner she'd hacked. "Finish her tonight." Hawthorne, meanwhile, sat in his chambers, shredding documents as news crews circled, his bony fingers trembling not with fear but with rage at her defiance. The entire system flexed its muscle, cops patrolling her block, phones tapped, bank accounts frozen, each move a crueler twist of the knife to gag her truth. Amara hid in an abandoned cannery by the docks, the flash drive burning a hole in her pocket, her body bruised but her spirit blazing. They thought they could break her, these men who crushed lives like ants underfoot. But she'd survived their bombs, their bullets, their betrayal. Listeners, this is Amara Cade, warrior, survivor, the voice they can't silence. Every explosion, every assassination, every smirk from Brandt and Voss screams their panic. She's close. Too close to tearing their empire down. Like this video now, because every click is a shout of defiance, a lifeline to her fight. They're coming for her, but she's coming for them harder. And we're in this with her. Let's make sure she wins. The abandoned cannery on Port Vera's fog-shrouded docks shuddered in the stillness of night, its rusted beams creaking as if whispering warnings to Amara Cade, who crouched in a darkened corner, her hands trembling around the flash drive Lena Hawthorne had died to deliver. The air reeked of rotten salt, the distant crash of waves, a faint pulse beneath the storm brewing in her chest. 3 days had passed since Lena's blood soaked her doorstep, since the sniper's bullet stole the judge's daughter mid-sentence. And Amara had barely slept, dodging a car bomb, a cliffside crash, and a fusillade that tore her safe house apart just hours ago, driving her to this crumbling hideout. Now, at 38, her breath shallow and her body bruised, she plugged the drive into her cracked laptop, its flickering screen unveiling a digital abyss of corruption that clawed at her soul. The first folder, payments, exposed a ledger of blood money, millions wired to Judge Elias Hawthorne's offshore accounts, each tied to a case he'd buried. One line seared into her, $500 in 09. Labeled, Carter termination, linked to the murder of a black fisherman who'd sued the police. His body found bloated in the harbor. Ruled a drowning by Hawthorne's pen. Another folder, enforcers, cataloged Officer Lucas Brandt's savagery, photos of a teen's smashed face. Audio of Brandt's laugh as he torched a witness's car with the man trapped inside. His screams drowned by crackling flames. A new name emerged. Officer Tara Klein. A wiry 30-year-old with a buzzcut and a rap sheet of her own. Video of her strangling a Latino protester with a chokehold until his eyes rolled back. A crime Hawthorne dismissed as justified force. The real terror lurked in the syndicate. A roster of puppet masters. Senator Clara Voss, Milo's aunt, still reeling from his death. Shipping tycoon Victor Drace. And a cabal of donors whose fortunes bought silence. Their emails cold and precise, Cade's a liability. $2 million to end her. Now, her pulse spiked. They'd paid for her death. And the bomb, the sniper, the chase were their opening salvos. The evidence unveiled a machine of evil. Not just Hawthorne's courtroom but a sprawling network that fed on Port Vera's marginalized, black fishermen vanished. Brown activists silenced. All erased by Brandt's fists. Klein's cruelty, and Hawthorne's rulings, bankrolled by the syndicate's gold. A final file flickered open, Hawthorne on tape. His voice a venomous hiss. She's a dead woman walking. Do it clean, or we're finished. The screen froze on his skeletal face. That smirk she'd defied in court, now a guillotine poised above her neck. Suspense tightened like a vice. If she exposed this, they'd unleash hell, drones, hit squads. A city turned against her. The Canary's shadows begged her to flee, to vanish into the fog and let the beast devour others. But Amara Cade didn't break. She'd risen from Port Vera's south side, where cops frisked her at 12 for looking wrong, where her brother vanished into a jail cell at 15. His file, lost, by Hawthorne's clerk. At 29, she'd felled a mayor with stolen tapes. At 34, she'd busted a trafficking ring, her lens capturing horrors that caged 12 men. This was her fight, forged in every bruise, every loss, a fire no evil could snuff. She snapped the laptop shut, her jaw clenched, her amber eyes cutting through the dark. They wanted her dead? She'd make them bleed first. She'd flood this truth across Port Vera, every screen, every voice, until their empire shattered. Footsteps scraped outside, deliberate and heavy, a flashlight beam slashing through the Canary's jagged windows. Brandt's raspy chuckle slithered in. She's close, paired with Klein's sharp hiss. Burn it down, boss's orders. They'd found her, their cruelty a blunt blade. Brandt had torched witnesses alive. Klein had choked a man unconscious for a crowd's applause. Both shielded by Hawthorne's gavel and the syndicate's cash. Now, they stalked her with gasoline cans clanking, their shadows looming as a Molotov cocktail sailed through the air, shattering against a beam in a roar of flame. Amara stuffed the drive into her boot, grabbed a rusted pipe, and bolted for the rear exit. Smoke clawing at her lungs as the Canary blazed. She burst into the rain-soaked night, the fire's heat licking her back. Sirens wailing faintly as Brandt and Klein's shouts echoed behind. She ran, the evidence a live wire against her skin. Each step a gamble with death, yet her spirit soared. A defiant storm against the abyss. They'd killed to bury this, but she'd die to expose it, dragging them all into the light. Listeners, this is Amara Cade, unbroken, relentless, risking her last breath to rip apart Port Vera's corrupt core. The syndicate's closing in. But she's striking back. And she needs you. Leave a comment below, join her. Fuel her war. Help her smash this system before it crushes her. Every word you drop is a blow against their evil. Let's destroy it together. Rain lashed Port Veyra's jagged cliffs as Amara Cade stumbled through the night. Her boots pounding the slick pavement. The flash drive in her heel a heartbeat of truth against the chaos she'd just escaped. The cannery's inferno still roared behind her, its flames clawing at the fog as Officer Lucas Brandt and Tara Klein's shouts faded into the storm. Another failed attempt to bury her alive. At 38, Amara was a battered silhouette against the city's neon glow. Her blazer torn, her arm bleeding from a shard of glass. Yet her amber eyes burned with a fire no explosion could quench. She'd seen the syndicate's ledger, Hawthorne's payoffs, Brandt's murders, the $2 million price on her head, and knew this wasn't just survival, it was war. Her intelligence, honed over years of cracking Port Veyra's darkest secrets, mapped her next move. She'd hole up with Malik Reese, her 40-year-old childhood friend and a tech wizard who'd once hacked the mayor's server for her at 29. Exposing his bribes, she staggered to his basement workshop under a laundromat off Walking Street, the air thick with detergent and desperation, and collapsed against his door. Malik's warm brown eyes widened as he pulled her inside, his voice cracking. "Amara, what the hell? They bombed you." She nodded, shoving the drive into his hands, her breath ragged. "It's everything, Hawthorne, Brandt, the syndicate. We're ending them." Her courage flared as she spoke, a steel thread woven through her exhaustion. She'd faced death tonight, but it only sharpened her resolve. Malik booted up his rig, decrypting the files as Amara paced, her mind racing with strategy. The bodycam footage she'd saved from Walking Street, Brandt's snarl, Klein's shove, was already viral. But the drive's financial records were dynamite. $10 million funneled to Senator Clara Voss for police contracts. $3 million to Victor Drace for dockside cover-ups. All signed by Judge Elias Hawthorne, whose rulings had drowned justice for decades. Emotion choked her as she read a name, Jamal Cade. Her brother, paid off with $50 in 2005 to disappear into a cell. His cries echoing in her memory as she'd wept at 18. Helpless outside the precinct. "They took him," she whispered, tears streaking her face, her unsullied heart bleeding for every soul they'd crushed. "Jamal. The fisherman. Lena." Malik squeezed her shoulder, his voice soft. "We'll get them, Mara." For him, her alliance with Detective Jonah Pierce, a grizzled 45-year-old with a scar across his jaw, clicked into place next. He met them at dawn in a rusted fishing shack by the harbor, his badge glinting as he studied the evidence. "This is Rico level," he growled, his own heart bruised from watching Voss die on the steps. A partner he'd trusted. Amara's plan crystallized. She'd leak the footage and records to every news outlet. But first, she'd confront Hawthorne in his own courtroom, live streamed, with Pierce's warrants ready to drop. The excitement surged as she imagined it, millions watching, the syndicate's masks torn off. But danger loomed. A black SUV circled the shack, its engine a low snarl, and Pierce's radio crackled. Brandt's voice. "She's with the cop. Hit them hard." Amara's courage roared as she grabbed a flare gun from Pierce's stash, her voice steady. "We move now." They burst into the rain, the SUV's tires screeching as it charged. Amara fired, the flare exploding in a blinding arc, forcing it to swerve into the pier's edge, metal crunching against wood. Pierce gunned his truck, Malik in the back, Amara beside him, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and fury. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she saw Jamal's wide grin in her mind, Lena's trembling hands, the fisherman's widow sobbing at a vigil, each a shard of her soul driving her forward. Her intelligence shone as she dictated to Malik, "Upload the Voss email, tag every station." Knowing the senator's name would spark chaos. By noon, they hit the courthouse, Pierce flashing his badge as Amara stormed the chamber. Hawthorne mid-ruling on a petty case. "Your Honor," she bellowed, her voice a thunderclap. "Explain this." Malik streamed it live, her phone thrust forward, the ledger blazing on-screen, Hawthorne's signature damning him. The gallery gasped, reporters scrambled, and Hawthorne's gavel froze, his face ashen. Brandt lunged from the back, gun drawn, but Pierce tackled him. cuffs snapping as the room erupted. Klein bolted, but Amara's footage looped, her chokehold clip now viral, stopping her cold outside. Emotion flooded Amara as she faced Hawthorne, her voice breaking. "You killed my brother. You killed them all." Tears welled, but her heart stayed pure. Unbroken by their evil, she was their reckoning, not their prey. The syndicate's web unraveled live, Senator Voss's office raided, Dracy's yacht seized, all triggered by her unrelenting will. Listeners, this is Amara Cade, brilliant, fearless, her heart a beacon against Port Vera's dark machine. She's dismantling it piece by piece, risking everything for justice, and you're on this ride with her. Every bomb she dodges, every truth she unearths, pulls us closer to victory. Jamal's smile, Lena's sacrifice, your voices fuel her. Leave a comment below, join her journey. Shout your defiance, help her topple this system before it buries her. She's not stopping, and neither should we. Let's overthrow it together. The courthouse in Port Vera stood like a crumbling fortress under a sky bruised with storm clouds. Its marble steps slick with rain as Amara Cade emerged from the chaos of Judge Elias Hawthorne's unraveling. Her heart pounding a victorious rhythm against her ribs. Hours earlier, she'd stormed his chamber mid-ruling, her phone blazing with the syndicate's ledger, Hawthorne's signature on payoffs. $500 for a fisherman's murder. Millions more to shield officers Lucas Brandt and Tara Klein, streamed live to millions. Her voice a clarion call cutting through decades of his tyranny. At 38, Amara had turned the tables on the hawk-faced judge. Once an untouchable titan who dismissed brutality cases with a smirk. His gavel a hammer crushing black and brown lives, her brother Jamal among them. Vanished into a cell at 15 for a petty theft he didn't commit. The file, lost, under Hawthorne's watch. Now, the gallery had erupted as Detective Jonah Pierce slammed Brandt to the floor. Cuffs snapping, while Tara Klein bolted only to be snared outside by her own viral chokehold clip. Hawthorne's face had drained to a ghostly white, his bony hands trembling as he dropped his gavel. The room a cacophony of gasps and flashing cameras. Amara's courage, forged in Southside streets, sharpened by years of toppling giants like the mayor at 29 and a trafficking ring at 34, had dragged him to the brink. But the real drama unfolded in the interrogation room that night. Rain battered the precinct's cracked windows as Amara stood behind the two-way glass, her torn blazer clinging to her shoulders. Malik Reese and Pierce at her side. Inside, Hawthorne sat shackled, his robe replaced by a gray jumpsuit, his once imposing frame shrunken, yet a strange calm flickered in his watery eyes. Pierce leaned in, his scarred jaw tight. "Names, Hawthorne, give us the syndicate, or you rot alone." The judge's lips curled into a bitter smile, his voice a rasp. "You think I'm the kingpin? I'm a pawn, detective, a well-paid one, but a pawn." Amara's stomach twisted, he was confessing, but not breaking. He traced a finger along the table, recounting how he'd taken bribes since '95. $20 million over decades to bury cases, Jamal's among them. A $50 favor to silence a protest leader's son. Brandt and Klein were his enforcers, beating witnesses into silence, torching evidence, while Senator Clara Voss and Victor Drace pulled strings from ivory towers. "They owned me," he hissed, "but I wasn't the top." Pierce slammed a fist on the table. "Who is?" Hawthorne's gaze flicked to Amara through the glass. She swore he saw her, and he whispered, "You'll find out soon enough. They're coming for her." The warning iced her veins. But before she could process it, the precinct's lights flickered, then died. A muffled boom rocked the building, plaster dust raining as screams erupted down the hall. Pierce drew his gun. Ambush. Malik yanked Amara back as the door burst open. Black-clad figures stormed in, masks gleaming under red laser sights, automatic rifles spitting fire. Hawthorne laughed, a chilling cackle. "Told you." The plot twisted hard. This wasn't just a rescue, it was an execution squad. Sent not to save the judge but to silence him and her in one bloody sweep. Amara's intelligence kicked in, she grabbed Malik, diving behind a desk as bullets shredded the glass. Pierce returning fire, his growl fierce. "Get out, Cade." Her unsullied heart pounded for justice, not just for Jamal, but for Lena, the fisherman, every name on that ledger, as she crawled through the chaos. Glass cutting her palms, the flash drive still in her boot. The squad wasn't local cops. Their gear screamed private military, Dracy's mercenaries. Or Voss's shadow army, here to bury the truth she'd unearthed. Hawthorne's cuffs clinked as he slumped, a stray round catching his shoulder. His laugh fading to a gurgle, his downfall complete. But at a cost. Amara's breath hitched as she spotted a side exit. Malik dragging a wounded Pierce behind her, his leg oozing red. They burst into the rain-slick alley. The precinct ablaze behind them, sirens wailing as the hit squad vanished into the night. She propped Pierce against a dumpster, his gruff, "I'm fine," belied by his grimace, while Malik hacked a burner phone, uploading the interrogation clip, Hawthorne's confession, before the syndicate could scrub it. The video hit the web like a thunderclap. Millions watching the judge name Voss and Drace. His warning about bigger players, a chilling coda. By dawn, Hawthorne was in a cell. Brandt and Klein in cuffs. Voss's mansion raided. Dracy's yacht impounded. The system cracking under Amara's relentless hammer. But the twist lingered. Who were they? Her journey wasn't over. The real puppeteers loomed. Their mercenaries, a taste of the war ahead. She stood on the cliffs, wind whipping her curls, her spirit unbroken, Jamal's memory a quiet ache, Lena's sacrifice a fire in her gut. She'd lost her apartment, her safety, nearly her life, but her resolve glittered like the sea below. "We're not done," she told Pierce and Malik, her voice steel. "They'll regret this." Pierce smirked through his pain. "Damn right," while Malik nodded. For Jamal, the results electrified Port Vera. Protests swelled. Newsrooms buzzed. The syndicate's grip slipping as Amara's truth tore through their lies. Listeners, this is Amara Cade's fight, her intelligence outsmarting hitmen, her courage defying death, her heart pure against a system that's bled this city dry. Hawthorne's down, a pawn crushed, but the twist reveals a deeper game. She's rattled the cage of giants. And they're striking back. You followed her this far. Watched her topple a judge who buried her brother. Who shielded killers, only to face a bigger beast. The precinct's ashes. Hawthorne's warning. The mercenaries' guns. It's a thrill worth chasing. A result worth cheering. If you feel this victory sings. If you're hooked on her journey to overthrow these shadows. Hit that subscribe button now. Every click fuels her war. Keeps you in the front row as she hunts the they behind it all. Because Amara's not stopping. And neither should we. The dawn broke over Port Vera's jagged cliffs with a golden ferocity that seemed to mock the scars of the night before. Painting the city in hues of hope as Amara Cade stood atop a windswept bluff. Her torn blazer fluttering like a battle flag. Her amber eyes tracing the horizon where the sea met the sky. The precinct ambush had left its mark, smoke still curled from the wreckage. Detective Jonah Pierce nursed a bullet-grazed leg in a makeshift triage tent below. And Malik Reese's fingers danced over a laptop, uploading the final clips of Judge Elias Hawthorne's confession to a world already ablaze with her truth. At 38, Amara had become the eye of a storm that had swelled into a national reckoning. Her voice, raw from shouting down Hawthorne, steady from years of exposing rot, now a clarion call echoing beyond Port Vera's neon-lit streets and salt-crusted docks. The flash drive Lena Hawthorne had died for, its ledger of blood money and murder, had cracked open the syndicate's iron grip, revealing them not as shadows but as flesh and blood tyrants. Senator Clara Voss, a silver-haired political titan who'd funneled $15 million to rig elections and silence dissent. Victor Drace, a shipping magnate whose $20 million in bribes turned the harbor into a graveyard for whistleblowers, and a dozen elite donors, bankers, CEOs, real estate barons, whose combined $50 million had bought a justice system that crushed black and brown lives like Jamal's. Amara's brother, lost to a $50 payoff in '05. The consequences came swift and brutal. Voss's mansion was raided live on air. Her silk gowns trampled by FBI boots as she screamed about due process. Dracy's yacht was seized mid-escape. His private guards disarmed as he spat curses at the cameras, and the donors' empires crumbled, stocks tanked. Boards resigned, their racist schemes exposed in emails ordering purges of minority neighborhoods. Hawthorne, the syndicate's pawn, sat in a cell, his shoulder bandaged, his confession a death knell. He'd named them all. his voice trembling with the realization that his $20 million in bribes couldn't save him now. Officer Lucas Brandt and Tara Klein, the syndicate's fists, were cuffed in a holding pen. Brandt's smug grin replaced by a snarl as he faced life for murder. Klein's buzzcut bowed as her chokehold victims testified via Zoom. The police union, a fortress of corruption, collapsed, its leaders arrested, its funds frozen, its power shattered by Amara's footage and the public's roar. Systemic reform swept in like a tide, bodycams mandated, oversight boards empowered, Port Veyra's courts stripped of Hawthorne's cronies. Yet Amara knew the fight wasn't over, the real players. A cabal above even Voss and Drace lurked beyond her reach, their private jets already airborne, their whispers plotting her end. The personal cost weighed heavy, her apartment gutted by fire, her body bruised from cliffside escapes, Lena's blood a stain on her soul, Jonah's limp a reminder of bullets she'd drawn. Her triumph, though, was a beacon. She'd become a symbol, her face on protest signs, her name chanted in streets from coast to coast. A black woman who'd turned near death into a sword against evil. But the story's heart pulsed deeper. In a moment no listener could foresee. A twist of fate that would mend her shattered pieces and lift this tale to a soaring end. It began with a call, crackling through Malik's burner phone as they regrouped in a fisherman's shack by the harbor. The rain a soft drumbeat against the tin roof. Amara's hands shook as she answered, her breath catching at a voice she hadn't heard in 20 years, low. Hesitant, but unmistakable. Mara? It's Jamal. The world tilted, her knees buckled. Malik catching her as tears she'd buried since she was 18 flooded free. Jamal Cade, her baby brother, the boy with the wide grin who'd taught her to skip stones on the South Side Canal. Wasn't dead. The syndicate's $50 hadn't killed him, it had bought his erasure. Shipped him to a private prison in the desert. A ghost in a system that thrived on forgetting. Her footage, her fight, had pierced that veil. His name in the ledger sparked a guard's tip. A prisoner's release. And now he was free. His call patched from a halfway house 300 miles away. I saw you on TV, he said, his voice breaking. You never stop looking. Amara sobbed, a sound of joy and anguish. Her unsullied heart cracking open to let him back in. She'd lost him at 15. Watched him hauled off for stealing bread he didn't take. Her screams ignored as Hawthorne's clerk. Lost the file. She'd spent decades believing him dead. Her grief a silent fuel for every mayor she'd toppled. Every trafficker she'd caged. Now, he was alive, 35 and weathered. His laugh a faint echo of the boy she'd known. But alive. The emotional tide swept her. Regret for the years stolen. Rage at the syndicate's cruelty. Love for the brother she'd mourned. I'm coming for you, she vowed, her voice steel through tears. And within hours, she was on a bus. Pierce and Malik waving her off. The flash drive safe with them as they chased the real players. The reunion unfolded under a desert sun. Dust swirling as Jamal stepped from the halfway house. His frame thin but his eyes hers, amber. Unbroken, they collided, her arms around him, his head on her shoulder. Sobs shaking them both as decades dissolved. You fought for me, he whispered, and she nodded. Always. He told her of the prison, chains. Silence. The syndicate's orders to break him, but he'd held on. Scratching her name into a cell wall. A lifeline to the sister he knew wouldn't quit. Amara's intelligence had freed him. Her courage had shattered his cage. Her heart had never let him go. Back in Port Veyra, the nation watched, Voss jailed for life. Drace's empire liquidated to fund victim reparations. The donors' wealth seized, their racist legacy a public scar. The humanistic meaning crystallized. Resilience isn't just survival, it's love. Unbroken by evil. A force that topples tyrants when wielded with truth. Amara stood with Jamal on that cliff a week later. His hand in hers. The sea a mirror of their shared scars and strength. The syndicate's pawns, Hawthorne, Brandt, Klein, rotted in cells. Their masters, Voss, Drace, the donors, faced justice. Their cruel, racist actions a textbook of greed and hate now taught in schools as a warning. The real players lingered. A shadow she'd chase another day. But this victory was hers. A triumph born of near death and loss, Lena's sacrifice. Jonah's blood, her own shattered safety, transformed into a dawn where Jamal breathed free. She'd paid dearly, but the cost birthed a symbol, a black woman who'd bent a nation toward justice. Her resolve a lighthouse for the lost. Listeners, this is Amara Cade's story, broader than Port Vera. Deeper than one fight. It's about us, real life. Where systems grind us down. Where racism festers. Where love and courage can still win. Jamal's return teaches us, don't surrender to despair, seek truth. Hold fast, fight on, contemplate this, when you're crushed. Who's your Jamal? Your reason to rise? When power silences, how will you shout? Amara's journey mirrors ours. Every bruise a lesson. Every tear a seed. The syndicate's fall, jail, ruin, shame, proves evil pays. But her heart, holding Jamal, proves good endures. Like this video. Leave a comment. Follow this channel, join her triumph. Share your lessons. Get the earliest stories of heroes like her. Your voice keeps this fire alive. Subscribe if this ending, this hope, this brother found, is worthy. Let's build a world where justice isn't just a dream, together.